They say history is written by the victors, but what if the truth was buried with the fallen? Every secret leaves a trace, if you know where to look. This is The Broken Truth, decoding history, one broadcast at a time. The Broken Truth podcast, where history meets conspiracy. Every case tells a story, every story hides a lie. Before the world was divided into continents, before the oceans swallowed coastlines, before history began its selective memory, there was a civilization so vast, so ancient, and so interconnected that its memory echoes across an entire ocean. The Polynesians call it Hawaiki, the birthplace. The Tamil text call it Kumari Kandam, the Southern Empire drowned beneath rising waters. The Maya remembered a sunken homeland far across the sea, and in the 19th century, mystics, scholars, and explorers would give it two names, Lemuria and Mu. Across thousands of miles of ocean, across cultures that never met, and across stories separated by millennia, the same message comes through. A world existed before ours, a world that fell, a world swallowed by the sea. Tonight, we dive deep into the largest, deepest, and least understood mystery on Earth, the Pacific Ocean. A place so vast that if you drained it, you'd uncover entire mountain ranges taller than the Himalayas, trenches deeper than the Grand Canyon, and landscapes bigger than every continent combined. But what else would we reveal? Ruins? Cities? An empire forgotten by time or erased by design? Tonight we explore Lemuria, Mu, and the Pacific Kingdoms, not as fantasy, but as a question. Why do so many cultures remember a sunken world? What evidence survives of lost Pacific civilization? And why would modern academia fight so hard to bury it? Welcome back to the Broken Truth podcast. I'm your host, Garrett. If you've been following Season 2, you know we're peeling back the layers of human history, revealing a world that predates the cultures we're taught were the first. Tonight is one of the foundational pillars of that forgotten world. Because when you talk about Atlantis, you get a single city. When you talk about Lemuria, you get an entire civilization, one that may have spanned thousands of miles across the Pacific and Indian Oceans. And the deeper you dive, the more evidence suggests humanity had a level of sophistication long before the pyramids, long before Mesopotamia, and long before history permitted civilization to exist. This is one of the most complex episodes we've done. Part anthropology, part mythology, part geology, part catastrophe science, and part forbidden archaeology. But by the end, you will understand why millions believe this civilization was real. Let's begin at the beginning. The origins of the Lemuria hypothesis, the scientific accident that opened a forbidden door. Strangely, Lemuria wasn't born as mythology. It wasn't born in ancient texts. It wasn't born in esoteric societies. It was born in Western science. In 1864, zoologist Philip Sclater published a paper titled The Mammals of Madagascar. He was trying to solve a simple question. Why do Madagascar and India share similar species? Lemurs existed in Madagascar. Primitive primates existed in India, but not in Africa, not in between. This led Sclater to propose a now laughed at idea. There must have once been a sunken continent connecting these lands. He called it Lemuria, after the lemurs that inspired it. His theory was wrong from a modern geological standpoint. But what he accidentally triggered was something far bigger. Because long before Sclater's scientific guess, people around the world had been describing a drowned southern continent for thousands of years. Ancient memories of a sunken world, Kumari Kandam, India's lost civilization. Tamil literature, some of the oldest written texts on Earth, describe the destruction of a vast southern continent called Kumari Kandam. According to the Tamil Sangam texts, it was home to a great kingdom. Its rulers were advanced, wise, and prosperous. Its land stretched far into what is now the Indian Ocean. It was destroyed in a cataclysmic flood. Survivors migrated north to found new civilizations in India. This predates Atlantis by thousands of years. It also aligns with geological evidence of submerged land in the Indian Ocean, known today as the Sunda Shelf or Sahul Shelf. The Polynesian myth, Hawaiki, the drowned homeland. Across the Pacific, nearly every culture, from Hawaii to New Zealand, share versions of the same origin story. Their ancestors came from a great homeland now beneath the sea. They call it Hawaiki, Avaiki, Savaiki, or Hawaii. Different names, same story. A lost homeland, a great migration, a fall from a golden age. These cultures navigated the Pacific with technology Westerners still can't fully explain, and they claimed their ancestors learned it from the people of the drowned lands. Maori tradition, a great flood and the fall of a chiefly empire. The Maori remember a great empire in the Pacific ruled by gods and demigods. One misdeed or cosmic imbalance caused the ocean to rise and swallow entire lands. When modern geologists mapped New Zealand's underwater plateau, they discovered Zealandia, a nearly continent-sized landmass now 94% underwater, another lost world beneath the waves. Australian Aboriginal memory, the oldest human story on Earth. Aboriginal people carry oral histories going back over 10,000 years, confirmed by geological evidence describing events from the end of the last ice age. Their stories describe coastlines that once existed, lands swallowed by rising seas, great migrations from now flooded regions, sky, fire, and earth shaking. These memories preserve details from a time when sea levels were 400 feet lower, meaning entire civilizations could have existed where today only water remains. James Churchward and the Tablets of Mu, the man who claimed to remember the first civilization. Enter Colonel James Churchward, a controversial figure whose writings either illuminate an ancient truth or represent one of the greatest coincidences in archaeological history. Churchward claimed he was trained by a secretive Indian priesthood. He learned to read ancient Nakal tablets. These tablets described a mother civilization called Mu. Mu existed 50,000 or more years ago. It occupied a massive land area in the Pacific. It was technologically advanced, not industrial, but sophisticated in astronomy, architecture, and navigation. It collapsed in volcanic cataclysm and massive flooding. Churchward was mocked, dismissed, laughed out of academia. But then something strange happened. Everything he described started being discovered decades after he wrote it. Megalithic ruins, submerged cities, ancient navigation routes, shared symbols, genetic links connecting Pacific peoples across thousands of miles. How did he know? Was it intuition, fraud, ancient knowledge passed through mystery schools, or genuine archaeological memory preserved outside academia? Churchward described Mu as a civilization of 64 million people occupying a chain of landmasses across what is now known as the Pacific Ocean. He said the civilization ended in volcanic eruptions, fire from the sky, the land sinking as the ocean floor destabilized. His story aligns eerily with the Younger Dryas impact hypotheses, a catastrophic event 12,800 years ago that triggered fires, floods, and global destruction. Coincidence or memory? The Pacific, the largest graveyard on Earth. Most people don't realize this, but if you drain the Pacific Ocean, you would reveal more landmass than all continents combined. 1,000 lost islands, massive plains, entire mountain ranges. We've mapped Mars better than the Pacific floor, and what little sonar mapping has been done already reveals geometric ruins, massive step structures, submerged terraces, unnatural angles and alignments, stone roads, potential harbors, which brings us to the physical evidence. The megalithic fingerprints of a lost empire. Nan Madol, the Venice of the Pacific. Nan Madol, Micronesia, is one of the most baffling archaeological sites on Earth. A city of 250 million pounds of stone, built over water, constructed with basalt columns that had to be transported from miles away. No cranes, no draft animals, no wheels, no explanation. Local legend says the builders came from the lands that sank to the east. When European explorers discovered it, they called it the Atlantis of the Pacific, Easter Island, the outpost of a lost world. Most people know Easter Island for the Moai statues, but the truth is far stranger. Easter Island produced an unknown writing system, the Rongo Rongo, megaliths weighing up to 80 tons, oral traditions describing a cataclysmic flood, stories of long-eared ancestors who built the monuments, legends of a homeland far over the sea that was destroyed. Modern genetic studies also show Polynesians had South American contact centuries before Europeans, which means ancient people could cross the Pacific, meaning a connected civilization is entirely plausible. Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid. Discovered in 1986, the Yonaguni Monument includes terraces, stairs, right angles, repeating geometric patterns, flat platforms, potential carvings. Is it natural? Is it human-made? Or was it reshaped by humans from a natural formation? Either way, it is older than recorded Japanese civilization and sits precisely where church words said a subsection of Mu once existed. Submerged structures in Indonesia and India. Sonar surveys have revealed a massive sunken city off the coast of India near Dwarka, entire land masses off Indonesia, including temple-like formations, lost settlements where the Sunda Shelf once stood above sea level. These sites date back to before the end of the Ice Age, when sea levels rose 400 feet and swallowed coastlines forever. This is the world Mu would have existed in. This is the world that drowned. The navigation that shouldn't exist. Western historians claimed Polynesians accidentally drifted through the Pacific. Then, Polynesian navigators proved them wrong, spectacularly, using star paths, swell patterns, cloud formations, distant bird flight, ocean color gradients, starlight reflections on wave crests. They sailed thousands of miles with precision, rivaling modern GPS. The Polynesian voyaging Renaissance showed that the Pacific people mapped their ocean in their minds, memorized star courses, had ancient astronomical knowledge, built ships capable of crossing 3,000 to 4,000 miles at a time. This is not primitive knowledge. This is inherited knowledge, the kind you preserve because your ancestors came from somewhere far, far away, a place now underwater. The genetic puzzle. DNA tells a story scientists didn't expect. Polynesians carry genetic markers linked to indigenous Taiwan, Melanesia, Southeast Asia, and pre-Columbian South America. This suggests trans-Pacific contact happened thousands of years before what textbooks allow, with a connected maritime network, which again supports the idea of an ancient Pacific civilization. Mainstream scholars try to frame this as accidental drift, but drift does not create linguistic similarities, identical myths, shared symbols, synchronized calendars, compatible agricultural techniques. Something unified these cultures long before modern history begins. And that something may have been Mu, the cataclysm that erased everything. Every Pacific tradition remembers great destruction, a fire in the sky, darkness covering the sun, floodwaters rising, islands vanishing, the earth shaking violently. This aligns with the Younger Dryas impact event. 12,800 years ago, a proposed comet fragment slamming into Earth, triggering wildfires, melting ice caps, and massive flooding. Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, and a growing number of scientists argue that this event reset human civilization, erased advanced coastal cultures, left only the highland survivors. If Mu existed during the late Ice Age, which Churchward and Tamil texts suggest, its destruction fits perfectly into this timeline. Why academia hides this? 3 reasons. It destroys the timeline of civilization. Civilization would no longer begin in Sumer 6,000 years ago. It would begin much earlier, possibly 20,000 to 60,000 years ago. It challenges out of Africa orthodoxy. If a complex Pacific civilization existed, human development becomes decentralized, multi-origin, and far older. It supports the idea of pre-flood civilizations. And academia hates any theory that aligns with global flood myths, because flood myths appear in the Bible, Sumerian texts, Polynesian myths, Aboriginal stories, Native American histories, Mesoamerican codices, Norse mythology. Either every culture independently invented the same disaster story, or they remembered something real. The possibility of a surviving legacy. Was Mu a single continent? Probably not. What makes more sense? Mu was a civilization, not a landmass. A maritime empire, a network of islands, archipelagos, and coastlines that existed when sea levels were lower. A world that connected India to the Pacific, spread cultures across islands, mastered navigation, built megaliths, thrived during the Ice Age, and then was erased. Not by time, not by mythology, but by the greatest climate catastrophe in human memory. The linguistic trail, echoes of a forgotten tongue. If a civilization once united vast stretches of the Pacific, it would have left fingerprints in the form of language, and that's exactly what we see. Linguistics have identified something peculiar. Across Polynesia, Melanesia, Micronesia, Southeast Asia, and even parts of coastal South America, there exists a shared constellation of phonetic patterns, root words, and grammatical structures far more than chance alone can explain. Shared words across impossible distances. Consider these linguistic parallels. The Polynesian word for sky is rai or rangi. In Incan Quechua, sky is Hanan Pacha, but the word for shine is Ravi. In Tamil, connected to Kumari Kandam, sun is Ravi. Coincidence? Perhaps, but the pattern repeats. Mana, or spiritual power, exists across Polynesia. Mana in South America also means spiritual authority. Manu in Sanskrit means the progenitor of mankind, or divine being. These similarities stretch across oceans. The mystery of Austronesian expansion. The official narrative says Austronesian peoples expanded from Taiwan about 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. But here's the problem. Their linguistic footprint extends far older than that. Their cultural practices suggest a deep ancient maritime heritage. Their astronomical knowledge implies multi-generational teaching far beyond a 4,000-year timeline. Language evolves rapidly, and yet the consistency of these root words over thousands of miles suggests one of two things. A shared ancestral civilization older than the expansion model, or a cultural network that existed before recorded history. When combined with mythology, genetics, megalithic architecture, and maritime skill, linguistics becomes another thread connecting the people of the Pacific to an ancient source. A source like Mu, mapping the Pacific of the past. We often imagine the Pacific Ocean as endless blue water dotted with tiny islands. But during the Ice Age, the period when Mu would have existed, the Pacific looked completely different. Sea levels were 120 meters lower, exposing massive land bridges, vast continental shelves, hundreds of additional islands, coastal plains now lost beneath the waves. The Sunda Shelf, the real-world Lemuria. Between Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines lies a submerged landmass, larger than modern-day India. This region exposed during the Ice Age would have hosted rivers, lakes, forests, potentially early human settlements. A network of islands and archipelagos creating a maritime superhighway. The area connects directly to Papua New Guinea, Australia, Micronesia, Melanesia, Polynesia, meaning a sophisticated culture could have expanded from this region long before the rise of known civilizations. Zealandia, Earth's eighth continent. Geologists now recognize Zealandia, a near-continent-sized landmass now 94% underwater. It includes New Zealand, New Caledonia, several submerged ridges. Its existence proves a key point. Large continental regions can sink over millions of years, and sea level rise can bury vast portions of habitable land very quickly on human timescale. Could Zealandia have contained outposts of Mu? Could Mu have been a network across Zealandia, Sunda, and the Pacific Islands? It fits the pattern. The Pacific as a highway, not a barrier. Modern people see the Pacific as a barrier. Ancient people saw it as a highway. During the Ice Age, with more land exposed, the Pacific was a connected world. A world with predictable wind patterns, stable currents, and exposed shelves that made maritime travel significantly easier. This environment would have allowed migration, cultural exchange, trade, shared religious and astronomical knowledge. This is the world the myths describe. a world destroyed by floods. The real question is not, could a civilization exist here? The real question is, how many civilizations existed here? The gods of the Pacific, visitors, survivors, or ancient rulers. If a great civilization once dominated the Pacific, the memory of its leaders would survive in myth. And that is exactly what we find. Polynesian legends described ancestral gods who arrived from the sea, taught astronomy, shaped laws, built sacred sites, used advanced knowledge unknown to later generations. Across Polynesia, these beings go by different names: Tani, Tangoro, Tangaroa, Kanaloa, Ku, Maui, a demigod, but with advanced capabilities. Many traditions refer to these figures as bringers of knowledge, civilizers, navigators, builders. This closely resembles the civilizing god archetype, which is found in Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, Egypt, India, and Andean cultures. Different continents, but same patterns. A being arrives after the catastrophe. It teaches astronomy, agriculture, order, and is remembered as divine. Were these gods survivors of Mu, refugees from a destroyed civilization, navigators sharing ancient knowledge? Or were they something more? Symbols across the ocean. Another clue lies in symbols carved into stone across the Pacific and beyond. The spiral, found in Polynesia, New Zealand, Easter Island, Hawaii, Peru, Australia, India. It symbolizes the sun, cycles, creation, journey, cosmic energy. It predates regional contact. The feathered serpent, dragon, and sky being. In the Pacific, dragons are rare, but serpentine sky beings appear in Aboriginal Dreamtime, Maori traditions, Western Polynesian myths. Across the ocean, the same symbol appears, as Quetzalcoatl in Mexico, Kukulkan in Maya, Naga in India, Chinese dragons. Do these represent shared mythic memory? Ancient contact, a diffusion from a central source, sun disk and solar deity symbolism. Nearly every Pacific culture had sun worship. Not surprising, but the patterns of depiction match civilizations separated by oceans. Circular disks, radiating lines, anthropomorphic solar rulers, all found in Polynesia, Tamil culture, indigenous South America, East Asia. This suggests a shared origin. Forbidden archaeology, discoveries that shouldn't exist. Let's look at some discoveries mainstream archaeology struggles to explain. The underwater city of Dwarka in India. Off the coast of Gujarat lies a submerged city with grid-like streets, massive stone structures, advanced urban planning. Carbon dating suggests parts could be older than known Indian civilizations. Mythology says Dwarka was swallowed by the sea, just like Mu. The submerged temples off of Yonaguni and Okinawa. We discussed Yonaguni, but additional structures include stone pillars, staircases, courtyards, potential altar platforms. Japanese scientists are divided, but the symmetry strongly suggests human influence. The Bimini Road in the Bahamas. Though across the world, this structure shows cut stone blocks, straight alignments, road-like formations. Some see it as Atlantis, others see it as natural. But the pattern matches megalithic layouts found globally. The Atacama geoglyphs in Chile. Massive geoglyphs across the Atacama Desert resemble Polynesian petroglyphs, navigation maps, ritual symbols. Their origin is unknown. Could Mu's Pacific sailors have reached South America long before Columbus? The evidence increasingly suggests they did. The cultural technology of Mu. What we lost. If a civilization existed across the Pacific, what technologies might it have possessed? Nothing industrial, but potentially deeply advanced in ways we no longer respect, including astronomical knowledge. The Polynesians built star compasses rivaling any ancient school. Maritime architecture. Double-hulled canoes, capable of crossing thousands of miles at a time. Stone construction. Though not as refined as Inca masonry, Pacific... Sorry to interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast, but this episode is brought to you by the Broken Truth merch. Support the show. Wear the truth. Official Broken Truth podcast merch is live now. Links in the description. And since you've made it this far in the episode, comment hashtag Broken Truth and leave us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. Because when you speak up, the algorithm listens. And so does the world. Megaliths show basalt column engineering, coral foundation building, interlocking stonework. Oral knowledge preserved over millennia. Aboriginal stories encoded geological events from over 10,000 years ago. This means humans can preserve detailed cultural memory indefinitely if they choose. Agricultural mastery. Terraced farming in Hawaii, Samoa, Tonga, Easter Island show a deep understanding of soil, water flow, and microclimates. Social organization. Polynesian chiefdoms were sophisticated, stratified, ritualistic, and deeply tied to astronomical cycles. This reflects a culture that inherited its structure from something older, something bigger, something organized across wide regions. A civilizational blueprint. The fall of Mu, what destroyed the Pacific kingdoms. All myths point to the same ending, a cataclysm. Fire, water, darkness, and earthquakes. Science points to several overlapping possibilities. The Younger Dryas impact, about 12,800 years ago. A fragmented comet hits Earth, triggers global fires, melts ice sheets, and rapid sea level rise. Volcanic supereruptions. The Pacific is surrounded by volcanoes. One supereruption can trigger a tsunami that wipes out entire archipelagos. Mega tsunamis. Evidence shows ancient tsunamis over 1,000 feet tall occurred in the Pacific. Plate collapse. The Pacific Plate and Indo-Australian Plate interact violently. Sections can uplift or subside drastically. Rapid sea level rise. As ice melted, oceans rose 400 feet, drowning coasts globally. A maritime civilization living on exposed ice age land would be annihilated as coastlines disappeared. Entire cities could be submerged in days. Aftermath. The survivors become the gods. When an advanced culture collapses, the survivors become myths. Small populations scatter, knowledge fragments, technology declines, story becomes legend, and legends become gods. This pattern happened in Mesoamerica after Teotihuacan, Egypt after the Old Kingdom, Mesopotamia after Ur, Europe after Rome, the Pacific after Mu. Survivors drifting to far islands would be remembered as teachers, builders, navigators, demigods, culture bearers. Even churchward claimed Mu survivors fled to Central America, India, Egypt, Polynesia, Easter Island. Is this mythology or cultural memory? The pattern is too universal to ignore. The survivors' migration routes, tracing the pathways of a fallen empire. If Mu fell in a catastrophic event, its survivors would have fled in every direction, and astonishingly, ancient migration routes line up almost perfectly with the places churchward claimed the survivors reached. Route 1, eastward to the Americas. From Easter Island to Chile, archaeological and genetic evidence shows pre-Columbian contact shared between potato cultivation, Kumara in Polynesia, and Kumal in Quechua. Matching boat building traditions. Nearly identical tattooing styles. Similar ceremonial paddles used in rituals. This is not random. It suggests a deep time connection between Pacific peoples and South America, long before European contact. If Mu existed, its eastern colonies would have been natural stepping stones. Route 2, westward into India and Southeast Asia. Tamil legends say survivors from Kumari Kandam fled north into the Indian subcontinent. Churchward claimed Mu survivors reached India, Burma, Cambodia, Indonesia. What do we find in these regions? Megalithic stone circles, flood myths, sunken coastal ruins, shared serpentine deity symbolism, similar ritual calendrical systems. Too many parallels for coincidence. Route 3, northward into Japan. The Jomon people of Japan created some of the earliest pottery on Earth, had advanced fishing and seafaring capabilities, displayed sudden cultural leaps without a clear local predecessor. Their symbols resemble those on Pacific petroglyphs, and the underwater Yonaguni complex sits at the edge of their territory, hinting that a precursory maritime culture may have lived there before the sea level rise. Route 4, southward into Australia and Melanesia. Australian Aboriginal cultures preserve memories of sunken coastlines, ancestors fleeing rising waters, skyfire, and earth shaking, migrations from submerged lands. Melanesians carry some of the oldest human DNA outside Africa, and their myths also speak of drowned islands. When you overlay all these routes into Ice Age geography, you see something powerful. All All migration pathways intersect in the one place Mu is said to have existed, the ancient, now drowned Pacific Shelf system. This is not random, it's a fingerprint. The laws and social structures of Mu reflected in Pacific cultures. If a mother civilization existed, its social structures would echo in later cultures. Across the Pacific, we see uncanny similarities, chiefly hierarchies. Polynesia was organized into ariki, or high chiefs, rangatira, secondary chiefs, priests, navigators, commoners. This matches similar caste-like systems in India, Southeast Asia, Maya, and Incan societies. Could these echoes reflect an ancestral political system? We also have sacred numerology. Polynesian cosmology is filled with sacred numbers. 4 directions, 7 heavens, 12 sky realms, 40 cycles. These mirror ancient systems in Egypt, Sumer, India, Mesoamerica. Shared numbers, shared cosmology, and shared ancestors. Astronomy is governance. Pacific societies use solar calendars, lunar calendars, stellar navigation, cardinal alignment of ceremonial sites. This reflects a scientific cosmology, not primitive superstition. Many megalithic sites were built with equinox alignments, solstice markers, navigational sightlines. This is the architecture of an ancient maritime empire. Taboos and ritual purity systems. Tapu in Polynesia, taboo in English, taboo in Fiji, and taboo in Malay. This concept, ritual restriction, sacred law, appears across the Pacific and even into Southeast Asia. Its similarity across thousands of miles suggests a deep cultural root, and that root may lie in Mu. The calendar of Mu, shared timekeeping from India to Hawaii. Across nearly every Pacific culture, timekeeping shares the same essentials: lunar cycles, 13-month systems, solar-lunar harmonization. Agricultural correlations, even more intriguing. The Hawaiian calendar and the ancient Tamil calendar share structural similarities. Why would Hawaii and South India, separated by 9,000 miles, share timekeeping concepts? Unless both inherited their systems from a common cultural source. Churchword claimed Mu used a 13-month solar-lunar calendar. So did the Maya, Aztec, Polynesians, Tamil culture. Different continents, but the same pattern. A relic of a forgotten timekeeping system from the Pacific. The engineering mystery. How did the island cultures build megaliths without a central power? Polynesian, Micronesian, and Melanesian cultures built massive stone structures that defy explanation. 80-ton moai on Easter Island. Cyclopean walls in Tonga. The basalt city of Nan Madol. Stone pyramids in Tahiti and Samoa. Step pyramids in Micronesia. This raises an enormous question. Why would small, isolated island communities invest centuries of effort into megalithic construction without a unifying cultural memory? The simple answer: they didn't start the tradition, they inherited it. If Mu existed as a maritime civilization with stone-building traditions, its colonies would pass down methods, ritual significance, alignment techniques, construction principles, even as tools, knowledge, and resources degraded over generations. This is why Easter Island legends say the statues walked, not by magic, but by a method they no longer fully understood. A memory lost, technology transformed into myth. The flood myths, the universal story that modern science can't ignore. Every Pacific culture preserves a flood, not just Hawaii, not just Samoa, and not just New Zealand. All of them. They share key themes. Rising seas swallowed ancestral homelands. This matches post-Ice Age sea level rise. Survivors fled by canoe. This matches maritime migration. A great darkness of fire preceded the flood. This matches the Younger Dryas impact climate effects. The old gods or ancestors went into the sea. This is symbolic of drowned cities. A new world began after the water receded. A restart of civilization. Modern science confirms that between 14,000 and 8,000 years ago, sea levels rose violently, coastlines were erased, island systems vanished, human populations were displaced. This is not fiction, this is geological fact. And it lines up perfectly with the fall of Mu. The academic resistance, why Mu had to be buried. The existence of Mu threatens several pillars of modern history. It challenges the origin of civilization. If Mu predated Sumer or Egypt, then everything changes. It supports diffusionism, meaning cultures shared knowledge globally long before textbooks allow. It validates oral traditions. Academia resists this because it undermines Eurocentric viewpoints. It implies a pre-flood world. This intersects with religious texts, which historians avoid. It highlights how much we don't know, and academia hates uncertainty. So Mu became pseudo-archaeology, a label used not to investigate but to silence. But the evidence keeps going, and the ocean keeps its secrets. Could Mu still exist as an underwater ruined field? Not as a single continent, but as submerged temples, drowned cities, megalithic foundations, terrace systems, stone roads, collapsed volcanic islands. Sonar mapping, which is only 10 to 15% complete across the Pacific, has already found dozens of anomalies. Many are classified. Some appear in naval databases but are not publicly released. Why? What is the US Navy seeing that civilians are not? Why is the Pacific, especially areas around Micronesia, Hawaii, and the Philippines, heavily restricted? Are there ruins, structures, evidence of a forgotten world? The ocean has answers, but we have questions. What if Mu was the world's first maritime empire? Let's put all the puzzle pieces together. If a civilization existed in the Pacific before the flood, it would have advanced navigation, a network of islands and ports, astronomical knowledge, megalithic engineering, shared symbols and language roots, maritime trade routes, a social hierarchy, a spiritual cosmology linked to the ocean. Every one of these elements exists in the Pacific cultures today. Is this coincidence or inheritance? When you zoom out, Mu is not just plausible. It becomes the simplest explanation. The Pacific was not empty. It was a world. And that world fell. The echoes in modern culture, what we still carry from Mu. Even today, remnants of Mu exist in Polynesian navigation, one of the last living ancient sciences, tattooing traditions, sacred symbols passed down from unknown ancestors, star lore, constellations used long before Western astronomy, megalithic stone sites, the final scars of an ancient engineering tradition, deep ocean instinct. Pacific people feel a spiritual connection to the water that mainstream anthropology cannot explain. Mythic memory, stories of a homeland beneath the waves, preserved over thousands of years. Memory is not random. Myth is not meaningless. Legends are not fiction. They're warnings. They're whispers. They are what remain after catastrophe. And in the case of Mu, they may be the only surviving testimony of a civilization swallowed by time. The psychological pattern, why the world remembers a drowned homeland. One of the greatest clues is the search for Mu isn't physical, it's psychological. Human cultures easily forget. Empires rise and fall in centuries. Languages evolve in generations. Cities disappear in decades. Yet somehow, nearly every culture on Earth remembers a cataclysmic flood. Psychologists call this cultural imprinting. Traumatic events become embodied in myth and passed down for thousands of years. But the memory has to be real, because myth alone cannot survive intact for millennia without constant reinforcement. So why do all these memories match? Because around 12,000 years ago, the world really did drown. Ice sheets collapsed, oceans rose, coastlines vanished, rivers shifted, islands disappeared, populations fled. If Mu existed, its end would have been the most traumatic event in human prehistory. And perhaps that trauma is why even today, cultures across vast distances still remember a drowned homeland. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally. The lost science of Mu, knowledge we can no longer reproduce. If Mu existed, what kind of knowledge did it possess? We're not talking about electricity, computers, or industrial technology. We're talking about ancient sciences, ocean navigation, still unmatched in many ways, megalithic engineering, lifting 80-ton stones with no cranes and no wheels, astronomical calendars, exact solar-lunar harmonization preserved in myths, geodetic alignment, structures perfectly aligned to solstices and equinoxes, hydroengineering, irrigation systems on islands with limited freshwater, stone shaping and vibration techniques, echoed by Polynesian legends of making the stones sing, social cohesion and memory retention, oral traditions capable of preserving geological memories for 10,000 or more years. Every one of these skills appears in the Pacific, but degraded, fragmented, and wrapped in a ritual. This is what happens after catastrophe. Knowledge becomes myth, technique becomes ceremony, and science becomes magic. And the memories of a once great civilization fade into history. The astronomical alignments, Mu's footprint in the sky. If Mu was a maritime empire, astronomy would have been its backbone. Across the Pacific, we see sacred sites aligned to rising constellations: Orion, the Pleiades, and Sirius, star path navigation systems, encoded in chants, stories, and memory palaces, calendar temples in Hawaii, Tahiti, and Tonga. The Pleiades as a seasonal marker. Nearly every Pacific culture uses the Pleiades to signal the new year, planting cycles, ceremonial seasons, navigation cues. This mirrors ancient Japan, India, Maya, Greece, and Egypt, the same star cluster guiding civilizations an ocean apart. This is not coincidence, but inheritance. The people of the Pacific did not learn astronomy by accident. They learned it from a source civilization that once mapped the sky to navigate the sea, just as Churchward said Mu did. The case for Mu is humanity's missing chapter. Let's summarize everything we've gathered. The full weight of the evidence. We have mythological evidence, dozens of cultures recall, a drowned homeland, ancestral navigators, fire and water catastrophes, migrations from sunken lands, geological evidence, ice age sea level rise, submerged continental shelves, catastrophic flood markers, volcanic collapse zones, archaeological evidence, Nan Madol, Yonaguni, Easter Island, submerged southeastern Asian ruins, Polynesian megaliths, genetic evidence, Polynesian South American contact, deep links across the Pacific Rim, shared ancestral markers predating modern migrations, linguistic evidence, shared root words, parallel cosmologies, similar timekeeping systems, astronomical evidence, common star lore, navigation traditions, Pleiades symbolism, cultural evidence, tattoo traditions, ritual structures, sacred numbers, stone building practices, cataclysm evidence, the Younger Dryas impact, mega tsunamis, volcanic collapse, global trauma encoded in myth. Put all these together, and one conclusion emerges. Something enormous happened in the Pacific, something history has not explained. The question is no longer, was Mu a continent? It wasn't. The real question is, was there an ancient civilization across the Pacific that was erased when the oceans rose? And everything, absolutely everything, suggests the answer may be yes. Why this story matters today. We aren't digging up Mu for entertainment. We're digging it up because it changes everything. It redefines human history. Civilization is far older than we were taught. It challenges isolationism and anthropology. The ancient world was connected. It validates indigenous knowledge. Oral tradition is not myth, but memory. It exposes gaps in mainstream science. We know less about the ancient world than we pretend. It reminds us that civilizations fall, rapidly, catastrophically, and without warning. The people of Mu may have believed their world was eternal. Then, in a single generation, it ended. Cataclysms don't care about technology. They don't care about power. They don't care about human plan. And in an age of rising seas, shifting climates, and global instability, the story of Mu may be more than forgotten history. It may be a warning. The final question, could Mu rise again? If Mu was a civilization destroyed by natural forces, could humanity rebuild it? Some argue it already has, in the form of Polynesian cultural revival, indigenous navigation resurgence, sea-based food systems, spiritual reconnection to the ocean. But others believe Mu was more than cultural. Some believe it was energetic, a civilization built on harmony, with environment, cosmos, frequency, memory. If so, then our modern world built on exploitation, separation, and forgetfulness is the opposite of Mu. Others take a symbolic view. If Mu fell, our world can too. Civilizations rise, civilizations fall. The ocean keeps the records. But the memory survives. So was Mu real? A myth, a metaphor, a suppressed chapter of our past? Here's what we know. The Pacific once looked radically different. Cataclysmic floods erased entire worlds. Ancient peoples navigated across impossible distances. Megalithic architecture appears where it shouldn't. Genetics and language reveal deep time connections. Myths preserve memories science cannot explain. Something happened out there, something enormous, something the world has forgotten, but the ocean is not. This has been the Broken Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett. If this episode opened your mind, share it. If it challenged the official story, lean in. And if it stirred something inside you, a memory, a question, a sense of lost history, that's because some truths refuse to stay buried. Until next time, stay curious, question everything, and keep searching for the broken truth. But Don't forget, drop a comment below on your thoughts on this episode and this season so far. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on, specifically Spotify if you'd be so kind to do so. We are honing in for the goal of 1,000 reviews by the end of the year, and I think you guys can do it. I not only think, but I know. Our show's been growing rapidly, and I thank you guys for listening. It really means a lot to me. Stay tuned for next episode.
In a world built on hidden histories and half-truths, we've only just begun to peel back the layers. Because what you've heard tonight was never meant to be known, but you were meant to find it. If you're ready to go deeper, leave us a review, comment your thoughts, share this episode, and step inside the archives. Join the inner circle, where the real evidence is kept. This is the broken truth, because the truth isn't whole, it's broken.